Okay, we will call the meeting to order. My apologies to those on the line. The council chambers were used for another meeting right up until 7, so that explains the delay. And welcome. This is the regular meeting of council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West, held in council chambers at 216 Main Street West, Swan River, Manitoba. This 10th day of May 2022 at 7:13 p.m. Present, myself, Deputy Reeve Blosha, Councillors Foster, Kushniryk, Pierrepont, and Gade. Our CAO, James Webb, doing a podcast, Jeremy Bergen. Do we have a notice of absence from Councillor Wills?
He's going to join us by phone.
Oh, okay. So Councillor Wills will be joining us by phone. First resolution, be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held this 10th day of May 2022 shall be adopted as presented. A mover, please. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Blosha. Any changes to the agenda? Not. Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Who joined us on the phone?
Councillor Wills.
Good evening. We just called the vote for the agenda.
Okay.
Next resolution, be it resolved that pursuant to section 152 sub 3 of the Municipal Act, council should meet as a committee of the whole to close the meeting and continue discussions in camera regarding personnel matters. Moved by Councillor Blosha, seconded by Councillor Kushniryk. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Okay, we have just come out of in camera. So the next resolution reads, whereas the Council of Swan Valley West verifies they have received and reviewed the Municipal Code of Conduct Appeals Director's report, and whereas the Council accepts the report as presented in full, therefore be it resolved that Bill Gade is in breach of the Code of Conduct, Council Code of Conduct, and the sanctions are upheld as defined in Resolution number 2022-133 dated January 25th, 2022, effective immediately. We have a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Pierrepont, seconded by Councillor Kushniryk. Any discussion?
Well, first, I note that Councillor Kushniryk shouldn't be moving it because he's in conflict with the resolution. He was the complainant to this, and so as the complainant, he's not allowed to vote, and neither am I as the respondent.
Let me just
So maybe we should have somebody else move it.
Can I clarify?
Go ahead.
That this isn't a code of conduct vote. This is a regular resolution of council. Even in a code of conduct, the only person that can't vote is the respondent. The complainant can vote.
Could you provide some reference to that, because the regulations said they can't?
Who's joined us on the phone?
Ken Mahawk. And Dale Lyle, I'm on here too.
Hey Dale, thanks for joining. We're just finishing up a few items here.
Sure.
So I guess to give my comments, this is a code of conduct resolution. The Municipal Act says that a resolution under the Code of Conduct must be affirmed by the majority plus one of the members for a council with 7 or more members. That means you need 5 votes in favor to pass this resolution tonight. The regulations for the Code of Conduct clearly state that neither the complainant nor the respondent can vote. Mr. Kushniryk must abstain tonight or he is breaking the regulations. Mr. Webb is making up a story, but he refuses to actually provide any written proof of it, even though the regulations say it in black and white. That's pretty typical. We just do what we feel like here. Mr. Galloway has admitted he wrote this complaint. Mr. Kushniryk says Mr. Galloway wrote the complaint. Mr. Kushniryk even said that some of the words in the complaint were too large. He asked Mr. Galloway to change the words so it sounded more like he wrote it. That means Mr. Galloway is in conflict here because he is part and parcel with this complaint. Under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Mr. Galloway should not be discussing this, yet he did at length in the in-camera session. He should have excused himself. That is a breach of the Conflict of Interest Act. If Mr. Galloway votes on this in a moment, that will be a further breach. He would have to abstain as well. What we've heard in camera and what is in the report is that council breached the regulations. Council breached their own bylaw in bringing this complaint forward and the processing of it. They refused to provide me the information they were required to provide. They were notified on numerous occasions they were breaching it. They refused to do anything about it. Then we were told tonight, it's not council's job to follow the rules. You should take that up with somebody else. If not this council, then who? Can we not follow the rules just one time? But here we haven't. We couldn't do anything right all the way through. Well, let's punish Mr. Gade anyway. We shouldn't vote this through because we didn't do it right. If we can't follow the rules, what is the point of punishing? The simplest example I can give is this. A person's driving down the highway and the RCMP stops them. The officer walks up to the window and says, "You're guilty, $500. And the person says, "What did I do?" And they said, "We don't have to tell you. We just say you're guilty, pay $500. So the person goes to court and says in the court, "I didn't do anything wrong. They won't even tell me what I did." And the judge says, "Well, because they won't tell you what they did, you owe that $500, when are you going to pay?" That's not how justice works here. That's not how the bylaw works. It's not how the regulations work. We simply, as a council, are not following the rules because the end game is, well, let's go get Councillor Gade suspended again. But we can't even do it properly. If I did anything wrong and we did it properly, maybe there'd be some point in suspending me. But we can't follow the rules. We can't even attempt to do it properly. It's simply, well, let's get rid of Councillor Gade again. I don't know what you're so scared of. I'm 1 vote out of 7. Is it so bad to hear the opinion of me and the people I represent? Is it so bad for Ward 3 to have a voice at this table? You can outvote me on every single resolution you want. And quite often you do. How is it so incredibly bad to have me here and hear that opinion of the people that voted for me and the numerous other people that couldn't vote for me because they don't live in Ward 3 that want me to represent their opinion here? Why do we feel the need to continually silence that? It represents no threat to you to hear the opinion. Maybe something they have for an opinion would be useful to this council. But instead we silence me, we silence Ward 3, and we can't even follow the rules to do it. I'd like a recorded vote. Thank you.
Any further comment?
Can I do some clarification, or
You
should we
may.
just move on? What does the council prefer?
Go ahead,
Okay.
clarify.
So, since we're not in Hollywood, that speech probably, and all the nice sounding verbiage,
Point of order,
doesn't
Mr.
mean
Reeve.
nothing.
He's bullying me.
because the fact is that council has followed, and we do extreme to make sure that we do follow the rules.
You yourself admit you didn't, James.
So, obviously, we're continuing to get bullied. This is one complaint out of 15 years of history that we've got to look at. It's not the opinion at the table. It's the inaccurate, misleading, unfortunate following that we see and the brainwashing that happens continuously that gets them in trouble.
Mr.
What we
Reeve, we're gonna
have to
sit
look
here and
at,
talk about brainwashing
Could
people.
you
Like, come on, brainwashing
Stay
people.
silent.
Control him.
what we have
He's not
to
on
do,
council.
what we have to do is
Just
we have to
clarify.
look at the facts,
He's not clarifying. He's giving a speech and he's bullying me.
and what we have
He's
to
calling.
do,
He's saying brainwashing people. You're going to allow that? What kind of a chair are you?
and so what we
you
have
are
to do,
out of order.
what we have to do is we have to look at the facts, and the facts are, is we provided all the information, the investigation shows where the error is. This is not a code of conduct vote. This is a regular resolution of council. When you're sanctioning a councillor in the code of conduct, there is a majority plus one. On this council, it's 5. This is not that. To further clarify, the policy manual says in the same section that the only person that can vote is the respondent.
Show us.
So that can be provided on the website, and it will be tomorrow in detail explaining the code of conduct so that people can get the facts. So I just wanted to clarify that. If I've said anything in error, please let me know.
Could Mr. Webb tell us if he ever actually gave me the findings of the investigator that I asked for?
Oh, further clarification is required that that's the investigator's responsibility. And
So you admit you know he didn't give it to me, but you're not doing anything about
I
it?
only heard that you never got it. I have no way of knowing whether he provided it or not. And many times you've said that I have not done something or I've done something, and it's an assumption. So I don't know whether we're assuming tonight or it's actual fact. So I can't prove or disprove what happened between you and the investigator.
So did
I'm
I
sorry.
tell you he didn't give it to me?
It is
Yes.
between you and the investigator to
And-
work that out, Councillor Gade, similar to the last appeal that was denied simply because you appealed on the wrong grounds.
Mr. Galloway, I hate to tell you now in public, but you're wrong. Because in camera, you gave us a big speech about how this was the second time I hadn't been provided the report. The reality is, you can't remember anymore. This is the first time. You're confusing things again.
Let's just vote.
If there is no further questions or comments, we have a call for a recorded vote, which we will do.
I have a comment I'd like to make.
Go ahead.
I find these suspensioners are very unfair. We have roads that are in dire need of gravel and grading, but we've got grader operators that are being directed to do other tasks. Washouts that haven't even been addressed or even marked yet.
What does this have to do with the appeal?
Oh, I'm getting to the point, don't worry. We have ratepayers calling in to address issues in their areas. They're being spoken rudely to or simply hung up on. We've only seen the first draft of our budget, and we have a public hearing in 3 days.
What does this have to do with the appeal?
So you're personally involved now.
If you've got something to say with regard to the appeal,
Trying to say it, but you keep cutting me off.
no, you are rambling on.
Hey, what I'm
Councillor
doing is I'm
Wills.
pointing out actual flaws with our municipality.
That's nothing to do with this appeal.
He does have 5 minutes to
What I'm
speak, and you
trying
keep
to
cutting him
say
off.
is we have bigger problems than social
Once
media
more, and you will
posts.
be asked to leave.
That is the only thing
Yes, you're
to
personally
focus on,
involved.
is what's said on social
must
media. We
excuse
don't
yourself.
worry about how the staff is treated. We don't worry about how the ratepayers are treated. We don't worry about the lies that are told at our table. But we're worried about what is said on social media. That's where I'm going with this.
And Mr. Wills, once again, I feel you are now personally attacking staff, and it's not the first time.
I'm personally attacking staff by pointing out some obvious flaws.
Well, you're calling somebody a liar again? You're raising your voice?
Just for interest,
Oh,
Reeve has
it's happening
admitted
though,
he
Darryl.
lies.
I'm sorry for raising my voice, but we can't just keep ignoring it.
When he says someone's a liar, the Reeve has admitted he's lied to this council. So
Councillor
he's a liar.
Gade, I
I
have
wasn't talking to you.
told you.
I wasn't done talking, as you would say. I'm talking, I have the floor, thank you.
Please continue. You shouldn't interrupt him either.
You know, yeah, forget it.
You will ask to believe in one more outburst.
You already said that before. You didn't
There you
follow
go.
through on it.
So then I would ask you to leave
No
this meeting.
thanks.
Pardon?
No thanks.
Well, you will soon leave. Go ahead, Councillor Pierrepont.
I'm finished.
This show and tell and dog and pony show
Personally
has
involved.
got to come to an end. And for you to do the song and dance that you have done and misled people to believe that you are being mistreated because of the procedure, you are not.
Mistreated completely, and you keep lying. Are you lying again now? You lied before.
Councillor
You
Gade.
admit you lie.
Councillor Gade,
Stop lying.
Councillor Gade, I will not warn you again.
You've already told me to leave, so there's no warnings left. You're still lying.
I will ensure that you leave if you continue to accuse me of lying when I am not.
I'm not accusing, I'm saying it's a proven fact, you are a liar.
I think we need to vote.
Okay, we were going to call the vote. Councillor Pierrepont.
Yes.
Councillor Kushniryk.
Yes.
Councillor Blosha.
Yes.
Councillor Foster. And yes for myself.
Oh, Matt's on.
Mr. Wills.
Matt, sorry. Councillor Wills.
No.
Yes for myself. The motion is carried.
So you
5 to
two
1.
both just breached the code of the conflict.
That is your opinion. Pursue it in a court of law.
Will you pay for that?
Oh, Councillor
it
Gade,
is-
you are over and above. The resolution is carried. We will take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Number 4 on the agenda, adoption of the minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held April 26, 2022, and special meeting held May 3rd, 2022 be adopted as presented. Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Kushniryk, seconded by Councillor Foster. Are there any errors or omissions? There being none, call the question. All in favor? All in favor?
I said yes.
Oh, did not hear you. Sorry. The motion is carried. Any public works report to give?
No public works, no delegations, no petitions.
Okay, we'll move then to 8.1, proposed subdivision.
Could we possibly jump down to 8.3? We got Dale Lyle on the phone.
Oh,
And he would like to speak to the rate review.
okay. We'll move then to 8.3, and the reviewer is on the telephone. Mr. Lyle, go ahead.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Galloway. I engaged to undertake a utility rate study for Benito utility, and there's an executive summary of the utility rate study that I prepared along with the spreadsheet tables and so on, in accordance with Public Utilities Board rate setting requirements. Does council have the executive summary?
We do.
Yeah, okay. So if I could, I'll go through the executive summary. I'll get an indication of the impact of the utility rate and to go along.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the Municipality of Swan Valley West operates Benito water and wastewater utility and provides services to 195 customers. Current utility rates were approved by the public effective January 1 of 2015, and this utility rate study proposes increases to utility rates effective January 1, 23, 24, 25, and 26. The utilities incurred annual operating deficits from 2015 to 2020 and has a working capital deficit. And by working capital, the Public Utilities Board has a calculation that takes the utility surplus less assets plus debt plus utility reserve, and in effect it calculates the working capital, the cash that the utility has, and Benito utility is in a working capital deficit. And as a result, it's recommended that rates be increased on an interim ex parte basis, with the first increase to take effect January 1, 23. And what it means is on an interim basis, the Public Utilities Board typically takes about a year to get utility rate approvals through. By the time it's advertised, the PUB does their full review of the utility rate study and the rate board makes a decision, the rates are effective. They have an interim process where they take they brief review of the utility rate study and they approve the rates, their full review process, and hear public complaints after the fact, and then make a decision on the rates as to whether they're final or to be changed. So the financial situation that Benito Utilities in, I'd recommend requesting interim rates. So the same steps, but it means that the rates are approved kind of at the front end of the process and then adjusted after if required. And that's done. The Public Utilities Board doesn't typically do that, but they do when the utilities not in good financial shape. So the reason for the utility rate increases, basically to cover operating deficits. There's a 10% contingency built into the rate. So in effect, the rates and the utility budget is set to have a 10% operating surplus at the end of the year to cover contingencies. That's part of the rate setting requirements by PUB. And there's a revenue decrease due to debenture debt that's maturing. And the biggest part of the increase is a result of water operator salary expense increases. So the billing, once the rates are fully instituted, so the majority of the rate increase is proposed for 2023 because of the situation the utility's in, with smaller rate increases from 24 to 26. By 2026, when the rates are fully effect, the utility is forecast to have $215,000 in annual billing revenues, and the 2017 billing revenues were almost $92,000, so an increase of $123,000. So as of in 2017, there was a deficit of $22,000, so that's to cover that deficit. 10% for contingency that's built into the utility rates, that equals $1,800. There's a decrease in debenture debt, so for local improvement charges, for debenture debt, utility debenture debt, collected through property taxes annually, that money comes into the utility and its revenue, and that debt expires, and that annual payment of $9,800 disappears. So that's a piece of what we're dealing with here. And then the largest increase, the operator salaries expense in 2017 was $22,518, and in 2021 it's $65,000, and taking a 3% a year increase out to 26 would raise it to $75,687. So an increase of $53,000 in 2017, going out to 2026. So that accounts for $101,000 of that $123,000 increase. The balance is various other water and sewer expense increases over 10 years, basically. So that's what we're dealing with. Kind of puts it into perspective. The billing revenues going from $92,000 to $215,000 a year. So that gives an indication of what we're dealing with rate. And on the bottom of page 1, it shows the current water rate, $5.74 per 1,000 gallons, proposed to jump to 22, 27, and 23. That big increase is required to balance the budget in effect for 2023, and then going up to 29.36 by 2026. Wastewater, a much smaller increase, going from 606 going up to 804 by 26. So water and wastewater rates combined per 1,000 gallons going from 1180 to 2972 in 2023, and then up to 3740 in 26. The service charge, which is a flat rate on everybody's bill, no matter the volume of water you use, and that's to cover administration, overhead costs to produce the bills, mail them out, staffing, and so on. That goes from 2181 to 2303. on the bill, so not much of a change there. So the big hit is the water rate increase. And then on top of that, because of the accumulated deficits and because the utility is a working capital deficit, the Public Utility Board will require the utility to recover a portion of those deficits over the last few years, and that's an additional $5.25 per 1,000 gallons over a 7-year period to recover that money. Anybody, any questions so far, or I'll just keep going otherwise?
Any questions? No, you're explaining it very clearly.
Okay. Yeah, bad news, I'm afraid, but
Yeah.
so the customer service charge, the administration cost, forecast to be $15,985 in 2026, and that represents 2% of the legislative cost center overhead. So that's office staff, council salaries, liability insurance, audit expense, office costs, printing, postage, stationery. So generally kind of everything that happens in your municipal office. And so 2% of that charge to Benito Utility for paying bills, paying staff, printing the bills, mailing them out, receipting, and so on, in effect. And that would translate into, as I mentioned, the customer service charge is not much of a change, that flat amount per bill going from $21.81 to $23.03. One thing I wanted to mention as part of this, the water and wastewater volume used for the rate study, I'm fairly confident in the volume that I used. I extrapolated it based on the, took a look at 3 different billing years and then extrapolated compared to the actual revenue received. But there, I had quite a time with the billings. There were fairly consistent errors most of the quarters. There were volumes, meter changes, volumes that I'd end up with. There were some where there were negative water volumes showing in the bill, like in the total billing, in different bills. So there's a number of just, issues with the quarterly billing. So spent a fair bit of time going through and sorting it out, and I'm confident that the volume I use is accurate for the revenues that are being received. But we'll see farther on. The Public Utilities Board wants to, like as part of a rate study, to take a look at the water loss, and that I'm not as comfortable with, just because of the issues with the quarterly billing. We'll see that a little farther on. The water commodity rate. So again, so the top of page 3 is going through the PUB has rate setting guidelines that have to be followed to set rates. So this goes through that, the formula required. Basically the water cost, which includes amortization expense, interest expense, and operating costs, plus the 10% contingency, 10% is actual operating costs, including amortization expense, comes to $155,000 in 2026, divided by 5,383,000 gallons, means we're looking at a rate per 1,000 gallons, $29.36. That's a huge increase from the current rate of $5.74. And the biggest part of that increase would have to happen in 23 to bring Benito utility budget into balance, so to just deficit again. Bulk water, there's calculations for that. Basically, bulk water is the water rate plus the calculation for the customer service charge, the flat rate. Because when you're buying bulk water, you're paying the water rate, but you're not paying the flat rate on your bill. So there's a calculation for that. For the bulk water users also pay towards the administration overhead costs, and that according to the PUB requirements, that would be the bulk water wastewater rate jumping from 10.59 to 24.50, and 23 going up to 31.75 per thousand gallons by 2026. Wastewater rate, no big changes here. The top of page 4, expenses, $42,000 divided by the wastewater volume, 5,269,000 gallons. Wastewater rate of $8.606, so going to 745 to 23,804 by 2026. Working capital. So I mentioned this before. So PUB has this calculation that has to be done to kind of, it comes up with a number to show the basically the cash that the utility has. And in 2020, the Benito utility had a working capital deficit of $135,000. And the PUB says their guideline is that you should have 20% of expenses in any given year. And in 2020, that would be $58,000. So the utility, in effect, is $193,000 short of what it should be. The deficit of $135,000, that should be $58,000 surplus. So when I looked at the 2020 audited financial statements, show that Benito utility owes general operating $160,000. So that's more or less what we're dealing with here. That's the money that it owes. So in effect, Benito utility is negative and owes the general operating. It's being paid. The costs are being paid in effect by a general operating, subsidized by general operating fund. So that's the piece of what we're dealing with, is to bring back so that it's running annual surpluses and it starts to that it owes the general operating fund. So by 2026, it would be at a deficit of $33,000. So improved by $100,000 from 20 to 26. If the budget numbers hold, and the one caveat I have on all of this is that there's been a big increase in the operators' salaries there. That's been the biggest hit that the utility's been dealing with. So, if the utility needs more staff time and or salaries, depends on what happens with salaries. Like this may be off if the salary increases exceed 3% a year on average, or if you find you're in a situation where you have to increase the staffing there. So, just that you're aware. Unaccounted for water, the top of page 5. I came up with 35%, but again, it's a little off. They're a little dicey because the quarterly billings I was using an estimated amount, not from the quarterly billing summary. So that's high, but I do see that kind of a water loss in older utilities, with lines that are old and need to be replaced, old water meters. That's just a fact of what happens, and especially Manitoba winters with freeze thaw happening. Just end up with broken water line, service lines. But it's something that should be kept an eye on, and Public Utilities Board will comment on that. They think it should be 10%. I'm used to seeing more like 15 or 20 with older utilities, and 35 is getting up there. There are no capital projects identified in the 5-year capital plan for Benito. 3% inflation from 22 to 26. I have no idea. I don't think anyone really does on what's going to happen with inflation, but that may be low or high. Right now it's low. That's over the next year. Hopefully that'll be more accurate. Inflation comes down, but I have no idea at this point. Cost allocation, I said, was 2% for admin. Operating deficit. So the utility had deficits from 2015 to 2020 that totaled $303,000. The big one was in 2020, $174,000, and there was $104,000 in 2020 that's expense for a wastewater study. So that was a large abnormal expense that really hit 2020. Otherwise, it would have been, without that, it would have been $7,000. 2021 looks like it's somewhere around $6 deficit again too. But that's unaudited at this point. So calculation below there, there's 100,000 of that 303,000 that under PUB requirements needs to be recovered to bring the utility back into surplus position. So it's proposed to do that over 7 years. PUB usually does 3 to 5 years, but because of the big increase in utility rates, I think you're justified to request 7 years and see what they do. They may grant that, or they may say 5. I can't guarantee, but I think you should ask for 7 anyway. So over 7 years, that's $5.25. Works out to $5.25 per 1,000 gallons on water volume used for all the customers over 7 years to recover $194,000 of that $303,000. Contingency allowance, I mentioned it's 10% of the fire staff. Large proposed increases to utility rates is not supposed to do a transfer to reserve time. It would be nice to do that to build reserves for capital projects, for like water line replacements, for example, or whatever. But it's just getting whacked as it is. So unless you feel strongly that you want to raise them more, I suggest not doing it. So page 7, utility rate for other water and wastewater, or other municipal utilities with water and wastewater billings for minimum 3,000 gallon bill. And these are rates that have been set the last couple of years by the Public Utilities Board. These aren't all utilities, they're just ones that have set rates in the last couple of years. It shows the kind of last year the rate increase that they've had that would be going on for. So most of these are 22, 23, the odd 24 rates. And so it shows by comparison Benito's 23 to 26 rates with and without the deficit rate rider. So 23 minimum bill goes to 111.82. With the deficit rate rider, it goes to 127.57. So there's maybe to take a look at that. And then the last page shows the billing minimum bill is currently for 3,000 gallons. Minimum bill is currently $57.21, and without deficit rate rider, that goes to 111.82 and 23, and up to 135.23 and 26. An average bill. So the average customer in Benito is using about 8,000 gallons a quarter, and that bill goes from 116.21 per quarter right now, goes to 260.42 in 2023, and up to 322.23 in 26. And with the deficit rate rider, minimum bill goes from 57.21 to 127.57, 150.98 and 26. Average bill goes from 116.21 to 302.42 and 23, up to 364.23 and 26. So some pretty massive increases. Benito's minimum bill currently, 57.21, is at the very low end of the prior page when you look at kind of other utility bills being set. So gone from being one of the very lowest to, unfortunately, one of the highest dealing. And it's a combination of increasing costs and, a smaller customer base and just not a lot of volume to spread those costs over, I'm afraid. So that's it for my presentation. I've got, there's other spreadsheets and numbers, but I think that pretty much covers it off. But does anybody have any questions or comments or want more information?
Hey, Mr. Lau, I have a question. Typically, once the pub establishes rates, a new rate review should almost be undertaken immediately again, no?
Yeah, so what PUB does with their orders is they'll approve these rates as proposed or vary them or whatever, but they'll make a decision on the rate, and then they'll require that the rates be reviewed for adequacy, usually in 2 to 4 years, just depending on the shape that the utility's in. And one of the issues that I kind of have at times is like the PUB, they're a regulatory body, and they believe that the municipal utilities, are responsible and will keep an eye on their utility for deficits and will follow up as required, as stated in Public Utility Board orders. So the PUB doesn't follow up on their requirements until another rate study is done. But the last PUB order, 83-14, given to the Village of Benito at that time prior to amalgamation. That board order said the Village of Benito review its water and sewer rates for adequacy and file a report with the Public Utilities Board, as well as an application for revised rates if required by no later than June 30th, 2016. I'm not aware of that having been done.
No, it obviously wasn't. There was a start made on it, I believe in 2017. And then we had a major disruption in our administration with a merry-go-round of CAOs coming into the position and then leaving not too long afterwards because of outside influences, so.
Yeah, I'm familiar with some of that.
Yeah.
So that's part of what happens. The PUB, they do have put those requirements in, and the whatever happens with the board order for Benito this time, I'm positive it'll have some sort of a requirement like that. And yeah, I kind of did a discussion with the PUB about maybe there should be a bit of follow-up because it's hit or miss with the municipalities. And as you mentioned, what happens so often is staff turnover, it's forgotten, whatever, and it doesn't happen. And then the situations like what Benito's in right now that could have been dealt with a lot more smoothly if it had been done 2 or 3 years ago instead of now.
And the rate increase that was awarded by the PUB back in 14 or 15, whenever it was only a single increase, nothing further down the road, right?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, and so this one does do over a few years, but unfortunately, like when I do utility rate studies, I like to phase the increases over 3 or 4 years evenly. But this one with Benito and working capital deficit and operating deficits, that it just really limits the ability to do that because the big issue is to stop the bleeding, right? So it needs to be in a position where it's not adding more to that deficit in 23. So that's hence the big jump in 2023, unfortunately.
Anyone else have any questions?
explained it.
Okay, it appears there are no further questions, so if you have something further, we would hear it now, and if not, then I'd like to thank you for your diligence in seeing this to the finish line.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I have nothing further to add, so we'll leave you to the rest of your meeting.
Okay, thank you very much again.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, we'll go back to 8.1, or we have some resolution to deal with here?
Well, you actually could deal with it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the resolution is there.
Okay, the resolution reads, whereas the Municipality of Swan Valley West has received a utility rate study for the Bonito Water and Wastewater Utility, and whereas Bonito Utility incurred audited PSAB and pub adjusted deficits of $303,797 from 2015 to 2020 as follows. 2015 was $10,819, 2016 $27,604, 2017 $22,150, 2018 $15,206, 2019 $53,777, and in 2020 $174,241. And whereas Bonito Utility has a working capital deficit of $135,591 and a minimum working capital balance of $58,475 in 2020, therefore be it resolved that the Municipality of Swan Valley West request approval from the Public Utilities Board for Bonito Utility 2015 to 2020 utility deficits totaling $303,797, with said deficits to be recovered through a rate rider of $5.25 per 1,000 gallons of water consumed for a period of 7 years to recover $194,066 to bring the utility into conformance with pub minimum working capital requirements, with the balance of the aforesaid deficits being $109,731 to be recovered from future accumulated surpluses of the utility. And further be it resolved that bylaw number 0097-22 to establish Bonito utility rates be given first reading and submitted to the Public Utilities Board for approval. And further be it resolved that due to the working capital deficits and ongoing operating deficits that the Municipality of Swan Valley West request that the Public Utilities Board approve Bonito utility rates bylaw number 0097-22 on an interim ex parte basis. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Pierrepont, seconded by Councillor Foster. Any discussion?
It's unfortunate, but
Yeah,
There being none, we'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried.
it's Matt there.
Opposed?
No.
You are voting against the resolution, Councillor Wills?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Declare the resolution carried 5-1. Okay, we'll go back up to 8.1, proposed subdivision. Whereas the Swan Valley Mennonite Church is proposing to subdivide Southeast 263529 WPM R230 400, a property within the AG agricultural zone in order to build a new school with recreational area, and whereas administration was advised by the Province of Manitoba Community and Regional Planning Branch that a subdivision application for the above property would only be considered if the Council for the Municipality of Swan Valley West would amend the Rural Municipality of Swan Valley zoning bylaw number 238304 specifically to allow for a school development on said property. Resolved that the Council for the Municipality of Swan Valley West agrees with the new school development and is willing to amend zoning bylaw as advised and to initiate the process as soon as the Province of Manitoba Community and Regional Planning Branch advises to do so. Do we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Blosha, seconded by Councillor Kushniryk. Any discussion? Not, we'll call a question. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Next resolution, whereas the owners of part of the southwest quarter of section 143528 WPM have made an application to subdivide their property, and whereas the Council for the Municipality of Swan Valley West has reviewed said application along with the conditional approval letter received from Community and Regional Planning dated April 4th, 2022, and have no objections to the aforementioned subdivision. Therefore be it resolved, we do hereby approve the minor subdivision of the aforementioned property, provided all conditions and requirements set out in said letter from the Province of Manitoba Community and Regional Planning Branch are met. A mover, please. Moved by Councillor Blosha, seconded by Councillor Pierrepont. Any discussion? There being none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Okay, we've dealt with 8.3, so we'll move to 8.4. Cemetery survey. Resolution reads, whereas the Benito Cemetery needs to be expanded, and whereas the existing lot has been recently staked and a quote for a site survey has been received, therefore be it resolved that the attached quotation, site survey of plots for the Benito Cemetery dated April 6, 2022, from Balkan and Kulchecki surveys shall be accepted as presented. Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Kushniryk, seconded by Councillor Foster. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. A lot of long resolutions tonight.
Yes.
Next resolution reads, whereas parts of section 250 and 252 of the Municipal Act read as follows. General powers. Without limiting the generality of subsection 1, a municipality may, for municipal purposes, do the following. A. Acquire, hold, mortgage, and dispose of land, improvements, and personal property, or an interest in land, improvements, and personal property. B. Construct, operate, repair, improve, and maintain works and improvements. C. Acquire, establish, maintain, and operate services, facilities, and utilities. E. Use municipal equipment, material, and labor to carry out private works on private property. Powers respect works, services, and utilities. Section 252 sub 1. A municipality exercising powers in the nature of those referred to in classes 250, 2, B, C, and E may set terms and conditions in respect of users, including A, setting the rate or amounts of deposits, fees, and other charges, and charging and collecting them. Collection of fees, 252 sub 2. A charge referred to in clause 1A may be collected by the municipality in the same manner as a tax may be collected or enforced under this act. Therefore, be it resolved that the outstanding accounts, as per attached list of accounts numbers, service addresses owing to the Municipality of Swan Valley West, as of today's dates, shall be moved to the tax roll for the appropriate property, and a notice shall be sent to all property owners reporting the amount moved to the tax roll and the current outstanding balance as a result of this application of amounts owing to the municipality. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Blosha, seconded by Councillor Pierrepont. Any discussion? Not? Call the question. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Okay, we'll move to number 9, finances. Resolution reads, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. General checks number 17760 to 17801 in the amount of $250,188.58. Do we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Kushniryk, seconded by Councillor Foster. Any questions on the checklist?
We'll have to take some time to read through those.
Anyone have any questions? Come across any?
Do we heat the shop with gas in Swan?
Yeah.
Shop?
Get through? No questions?
Not for me.
Okay, we'll call the question in. All those in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Next resolution, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. Payroll payments, checks number 4092 to 4104 in the amount of $18,077.28. Do we have a mover for that resolution? Moved by Councillor Blosha, seconded by Councillor Pierrepont. Any questions on that list? If not, call the question. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Next resolution, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. Indemnities. Checks number 4106 to 4113 in the amount of $9,513.64.
Can I just change that 4106 to 4105?
4105 from 4103.
Indemnities are for the month of April.
To 41.
Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Foster, second by Councillor Pierrepont. Any questions on them?
Could somebody tell me why one's missing again?
Paperwork hasn't been submitted.
So there was no reason for it not to be, it's just not done.
Not done, that's correct.
Thank you.
Glen,
Any further questions?
there's a detail on that.
Something to say?
No, just to look at it. I need
Yeah.
to-
There are none.
Just to look
Call
at
the
it.
questions. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Okay, 9-4, budget 2022. How long of a period of time we've had this? I guess just,
We've, I sent this out last night, so you had a copy earlier. We've made some changes over the period of time. The latest changes were when we met with the LUD, just at 5 o'clock here, and they removed $6,000 from their budget, so that's reflected in this copy. This has changed.
how did they remove that, what service or?
They asked that, earlier in the process, they asked that recycling be removed for the last half of 2022. And then they reduced, today they reduced the allowance for wages, for beautification, for their seminars, as well as the doctor visits to Benito, that amount was reduced. And insurance was reduced by $500.
So how is the doctor being compensated now then?
The doctor isn't actually coming right now. And word was that maybe they would only come once a month. So that's, they could cut it.
Yeah, they were gonna,
So our contribution then from the remainder of the municipality is also reduced then?
it wasn't.
Okay. But
At this time,
it shouldn't have to be.
it shouldn't have to be, no. Yeah, we just match it, so.
But we don't know for sure if that service is being provided yet or not.
Yeah.
Or when it will be, sorry.
Okay, unfortunately, for our ratepayers, they will be seeing an increase this year. The reason for the increase is basically beyond the control of this council. It's because of inflation and costs in areas that we have no control over, such as machinery costs, parts, repair costs, labor costs, fuel costs, as well as a very, very heavy snowfall in the early part of 2022. Nearly $100,000 was spent with contractors pushing back snow so that roads would not be washed out and making it safe at corners, etc.
As well as overtime for our
Grading
grading
operators.
Very, a lot of time in, that was greatly appreciated.
So as I say, it's unfortunate, but it's something that was beyond the control of council. I guess they could have chosen not to push back snow as an example, or pull the operators off after their regular hours were worked. But we had people, even with the operators working as long as they did and as hard as they did, and on weekends and holidays, etc., because of the winds and the much greater amount of snow that fell this year, they still had trouble keeping roads open to all ratepayers. So we also thank the ratepayers for their patience during that difficult time. So if you had time to go over the budget from when you received it, did anyone have any specific questions?
I think all mine were answered last time.
So the plan then tonight is to give the budget first reading. We then have a hearing this Friday. And it will be after that when second and third reading are given to actually complete the budget process. Up until we do that, we can increase the levy. After the public hearing, we can no longer increase, we can only decrease if we do any changes at all.
Thought it was after first reading.
Pardon?
Thought it was after first reading.
I said after first reading, you can still increase it until the public hearing.
Oh, I didn't think so.
After the public hearing, you can.
After the public hearing, you cannot, yeah. So if there was something that you thought of that's been omitted, now would be the time to bring that to administration's attention. If not, we will, if there are no questions, then we will consider the resolution.
One small one.
Yep.
Can we move funds from general without holding a public hearing?
That'll be part of the public hearing.
Okay.
So there'll be funds moved from the different reserves for purposes, and that is reflected on page, I got a different page.
Well, that's good. Is that just, it was just a question of we're going to need to move some.
Yes.
Yeah, they have to be moved prior to the public hearing, which Mr. Webb has said they have been done.
Page
And-
20 reflects the
Movement to those, okay?
the amount that's coming out of the building reserve, general
Yeah.
reserve, and, yeah, gas.
Yeah, that's just something I thought of earlier that.
Yep. And if it happens after the budget process and into the new year, then we have to hold a public hearing to use that money if it's not specific
Yeah.
for that fund.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, we will call the question. Do we, no,
Did you have to vote?
we don't need a recorded vote for this one.
Not for this one, but there is a resolution there that,
Oh, good.
we can read.
Yes, we've done that. Okay, the resolution reads, Resolved that bylaw number 0098-22, being a bylaw of the Municipality of Swan Valley West for the purpose of levying taxes for the municipality's 2022 fiscal year, shall be introduced and read a first time this 10th day of May 2022. A mover, please. Moved by Councillor Kushniryk, seconded by Councillor Pierrepont. Any further discussion? If not, call the question. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Anything under correspondence, unfinished business?
No, there isn't.
Okay, we come to committee reports. Councillor Wills.
Only thing I've had in the last little while is a special meeting last week. Other than that, just taking phone calls about washed out roads, lack of gravel here and there. And one thing I should mention is we should get somebody to bring some barricades out to my area. The Ford crossing on 216 is quite out of control right now.
Going over pretty good?
Yes.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you very much.
That's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foster.
Was that a G4 meeting, special meeting? I just had a vet board meeting too there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pierrepont.
I had a special meeting and the G4 meeting. I did have a ratepayer contact me the other day and asked me to say a special thank you to Mr. Mosian, our grader operator, on the excellent job that he's done this spring getting the roads in shape in his area.
The shared services for
Okay, I
Before the
don't
G4.
believe Mr. Mosian would be listening, so we would ask Mr. Webb to pass that
oh, we had one before the G.
on.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah. And the shared services. That was part of the G4.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kushniryk.
So yes, I had the shared services and the special meeting. But yeah, other than that.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Blosha.
I had the special meeting, attended the G4 meeting, a Health Foundation meeting yesterday, along with LUD meeting, a special meeting today. I had a call tonight from a bus driver about a road that has soft spots and a culvert that needs to be looked at. They're not being able to get there. I'll give the road number to the CAO and have it looked at as soon as possible. Also, there was a report that maybe the burn pit needs a little bit of a cleanup, as there was some burning had been done and there was some nails in that where you need to back up that need to be cleaned and picked up. It was also wondering if maybe that area maybe should be fenced off, a fence around it so you kind of contains it. And I thought that might be a great idea, but
Plastic is really bad in that.
plastic couldn't be around there, but
Yeah,
anyway, that was two things, but I'll make sure that our CAO gets the road number that the bus driver had given me tonight.
Okay, just a quick question. Do you know if any of the council members, if we have a magnet
That's what I was gonna say.
set of wheels
That would be wonderful if we did.
and it goes about an inch above the ground? and
It's just on the
snaps
handle
up
with- yeah.
any smaller metal that, like nails or.
That would be very beneficial to have out there. They're only like $100.
Yeah, and they aren't
so what are the shingles supposed to be?
aren't heavy to carry or anything else.
No, while they're on wheels, you just wheel it around.
Got it in the big thing.
Something that we should look into getting so that the attendant can do it every day or two or whatever, as often as is required. Okay, I attended a business consortium meeting, a fire meeting, a special meeting, a G4, and shared services meeting.
Okay, back up. Business consortium,
Business consortium.
fire meeting, G4,
G4 as well as the shared services
shared, server.
and the special meeting.
Have to continue to teach that laptop shorthand.
Yeah, you can only voice recognize. Business consortium, fire meeting, G4, shared services and special meeting.
Mr. Webb.
Shared services, special meeting, and G4 meeting, and
LUD special meeting.
LUD meeting, and many calls. I think for the most part, 95% of them we were able to satisfy.
Gotta add another one later.
So that makes it 94% now. We haven't solved his yet tonight, so, but we'll get to it. And yes, I echo that the ratepayers have been very good to work with. I know there's lots of washboard out there, and that's never pleasant, but we're getting there. We're unplugging culverts and keeping roads from washing out right now, so that's great. Okay, so I'll close this off.
If I just refresh, it should bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, resolution reads, be it resolved that we do hereby accept the following verbal reports regarding council committees and communications. Councillor Kushniryk, shared services, special meeting. Councillor Blosha, special meeting. G4 meeting. Health Foundation meeting, LUD meeting. And she spoke to road repairs need to be done and mentioned the burn pit at the landfill with a possible fence. Councillor Wills, special meeting, phone calls for roads. Councillor Pierrepont, shared services, special meeting, G4 meeting. Thanks to grader operator Blaine for work during the year. Councillor Foster, G4 meeting, special meeting, vet board meeting. Myself, business consortium meeting, fire meeting, G4 shared services and special meeting. Our CAO James Webb, shared services, special meeting, G4 and LUD meeting. Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Kushniryk. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Okay, we come to the point on our agenda where we take a break and then come back and go in camera. So I'd like to thank all those in attendance via the telephone, and we will open the floor to a question or comment regarding anything discussed on tonight's agenda. Anyone have a question or a comment?
Yes, Reeve. Councillor Wills really slammed the office staff, and I was not impressed because I have found them to be more than polite, bend over backwards. Tone of voice and body language is what communication is, and one of the girls, you can literally hear her smile the way she answers the phone. Your fire area, definitely fence around it, because even after 2 years, I am still picking up nails with the magnets because those high pressure hoses just drive them into the ground. And a thank you to the road grader. I believe his name is Blaine, because he definitely made it so that I could get out there. And to the office staff that made sure when I was getting flooded that it got looked after. Apparently the culvert was half blocked. Once again, thank you. And thank you for hanging together on a very difficult meeting, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from anyone or questions?
Jeremy?
I'd like to say something real quick. I'd just like to clarify that I in no way was talking about the girls in the office with anything that I said.
Okay, thank you. Anything from anyone on the telephone?
So who hung up on them then? That was what I heard him comment on.
Okay. Thank you all, and we have a question from Jeremy.
Just regarding budget 2022, of course, nobody wants to hear that they're paying more taxes. That's just the nature of things. But I think sacrificing quality of service for the sake of trying to keep the tax rate low in an effort to fight inflation, I think is a losing battle. And I would honestly be a little bit concerned if I heard that our rates weren't going up.
As I say, they were basically beyond our control, like price of oil doubled almost, so price of fuel almost doubled as well. Now, that's not to say that it'll stay that way, but it is that way now, and we have to prepare for the worst. If there is a surplus at the end of the year because we've over budgeted for fuel as an example, it won't be wasted. It will be there for use in a coming year. So thank you for that. It's understanding, and I know that people don't like tax increases. They don't like paying taxes for the most part at all. Like even income tax may be worse than property tax because you actually see a little bit of service for property taxes, and sometimes you just have to really look very hard to see where your income tax money is being spent and how that helps you at all. But we appreciate your understanding. Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you all again for attending, and we'll call a short recess and get back to business. Thank you. Next resolution, we'll call the meeting back to order. The next resolution reads, be it resolved that pursuant to section 152 sub 3 of the Municipal Act, Council shall meet as a committee of the whole to close the meeting and continue discussions in camera regarding personnel matters, negotiations, and preliminary discussions. Do we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Pierrepont, second by Councillor Kushniryk. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Resolution reads, be it resolved that pursuant to section 152 sub 4 of the Municipal Act, this meeting shall be reopened to the public. A mover, please? Moved by Councillor Blosha, second by Councillor Foster. All in favor?
Yep.
That is carried. Next resolution, whereas subsection 369, sub 1 of the Municipal Act provides as follows. A municipality may cancel or adjourn an auction of a particular property at any time before it begins if the property owner enters into an agreement with the municipality for payment of the arrears and costs. And whereas several property owners requested to enter into an agreement with the municipality for payments of the 2020 and 2021 taxes and costs, resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West does hereby agree to this payment arrangement and removal of the 2022 tax sale list for said property, and be it further resolved that the Reeve shall be authorized to sign such an agreement on behalf of the municipality. Moved by Councillor Blosha, seconded by Councillor Pierrepont. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Next resolution, be it resolved that the Council of Swan Valley West approve the purchase of a pumper that is recommended by the Fire Department and Committee, being a 2015 Pierce Freightliner Commercial Rescue Pumper for a budgeted number of $300,000. A mover, please. Moved by Councillor Pierrepont, second by Councillor Kushniryk. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Any notice of motions? Okay, last resolution, be it resolved that this meeting shall now adjourn at 11:02 p.m. Be it further resolved that the next meeting is Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Do we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Kushniryk. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you all.
The next meeting is, the next
Friday.
public hearing is Friday at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You all remember that? And then after that, we have a special meeting to do some resolutions.